At least with him the bills get paid. That's what she said about me. In front of everyone, at that damn birthday party. She didn't even lower her voice. Didn't look at me when she said it. Just kept her hand wrapped around that wine glass like she was holding something precious. You ever felt that? Like the floor's gone out from under you, but you're still standing? Too numb to fall? I didn't say a word. Just stared at her and tried to convince myself I'd heard wrong. Maybe I'd misunderstood. Maybe she meant something else. But then everyone laughed. A few people glanced at me with that look. The one you give a stray dog you can't quite bring yourself to kick. That's when I knew it was real. That's when I knew I'd been fooling myself longer than I wanted to admit. But I'm getting ahead of myself. It didn't start with that party. Hell, it didn't even start with her getting tired of me. I think it started with me thinking being dependable was all a man needed to be. That as long as I worked hard and came home, everything else would sort itself out. I've been welding since I was 19. My uncle taught me, back when I still thought the world was something you could shape if you just held it steady enough. I liked how honest the work was. You put heat and metal together, you get something solid. You don't have to guess or pretend. You know if it's strong or if it'll crack under pressure. I wish marriage worked the same way. I'd get up before dawn most days. Make coffee in the old percolator, the one that sputtered and hissed like it was cursing me for waking it up again. Pull on my boots, cracked at the seams, and grab my lunch pail. She used to get up with me sometimes. Make toast, sit across the table in her robe, hair still messy from sleep. She'd smile, say, "Be safe out there." I'd nod, kiss her forehead, and go. I held on to that little ritual longer than I probably should have. The shop wasn't much to look at: corrugated walls, the smell of burnt flux and grease ground into the floor. But it was steady work. I'd come home every evening tired, covered in grit, and feeling like I'd done something that mattered. Maybe not much in the big picture, but enough to keep the lights on and her comfortable. That used to feel like purpose. We didn't have fancy vacations or big plans. Just Friday nights watching old movies, Saturday mornings fixing little things around the house. I'd regrout the bathroom tiles or tighten a loose hinge on the pantry door. She'd sit on the counter, legs swinging, reading out loud from some magazine. Back then, that felt like happiness. Nothing grand. Just the sense we were on the same team. But somewhere along the way, she stopped getting up with me. Stopped sitting on that counter. At first, I didn't think much of it. People change. Work gets hard. Maybe she was tired. That's what I told myself the first dozen times I came home and found her already in bed. Or when she started leaving her dinner half finished, saying she wasn't hungry. Then came the little sighs. The way she'd pull her hand away if mine lingered too long. The way she started locking her phone when she left the room. I noticed, but I didn't want to. You ever do that? See something plain as day and still pretend it's not there? Because if you admit it, even to yourself, you can't go back to before. I kept working. Kept trying. Brought her flowers sometimes, cheap ones from the gas station on the way home. She'd thank me, but her voice was thin, like she was humoring a child. I told myself it was just a phase, that if I held on tight enough, it would pass. Funny thing about welding, you learn early that heat changes everything it touches. Makes the strongest steel warp if you're not careful. I think marriage is like that too. All the little disappointments and resentments, the things left unsaid, they build up heat. And before you know it, you look around and nothing's square anymore. Around that time, my friend Dave from the shop started asking why I didn't come out for beers anymore. I didn't have an answer I could say out loud. How do you tell another man you're ashamed to go home but more ashamed not to? So I'd shake my head and say I was tired. Which was true, just not the way he thought. There was this evening in late spring when I came home early. My foreman had sent us home because the main compressor blew. I thought maybe she and I could sit on the porch together, talk like we used to. But when I walked in, she didn't even look up from her phone. Just mumbled, "Hey," and kept scrolling. I stood there in the doorway, feeling like an intruder in my own house. That's when it hit me, she'd already left me in every way that mattered. She just hadn't bothered to move out yet. But even then, I didn't leave. I wish I could say I had some self-respect that kicked in. Truth is, I was scared. Scared to start over. Scared to be alone. So I stayed. I kept bringing home my paychecks. Kept pretending. I'd watch her sometimes, out of the corner of my eye, trying to see the woman I married. The one who used to wait for me by the window. But all I saw was someone who couldn't be bothered to hide her disappointment anymore. She didn't even argue. Just went quiet. And somehow that was worse. It got to where I'd rather stay late at the shop, breathing in fumes and dust, than walk through that front door. I'd sit in my truck until the last light in the house went dark, hoping the quiet would feel less heavy if she was asleep. It never did. Sometimes I think about the first year we had the house. How proud I felt carrying her over the threshold, even though my back was killing me from unloading boxes all day. She laughed so much back then. Every time something broke, and plenty did, she'd say it gave the place character. That first winter, the furnace went out and we huddled in the living room under every blanket we owned. She said it was romantic. I believed her. I kept all that in my head while everything was falling apart. Like if I could just remember the good parts hard enough, I could drag us back there. But nothing works that way. Work stayed the same. Long days, cracked knuckles, the hiss and pop of the arc torch. The noise of it used to feel satisfying, but after a while, it was just another place to hide. I'd show up early, stay late, take every overtime shift they'd give me. My foreman joked I must be saving for a boat. I didn't bother correcting him. It was easier to let people think I had a goal, something big and hopeful. The truth was smaller than that. I just didn't want to be home. She started sleeping on her side of the bed like there was a wall between us. The sheets never tangled anymore. No casual touches in the night. Some mornings, she'd already be up before me, coffee half finished, the smell of her shampoo lingering in the hallway. I'd stand in the doorway, watch her scroll through her phone, and think, where did you go? But I never asked out loud. One Saturday morning, I tried to fix the fence out back. It had been leaning for months, and every time the wind picked up, it banged against the post like it was reminding me how long I'd put it off. I thought maybe if I took care of something, anything, it would help. She came outside while I was working, arms folded. Watched me drive in the new boards. When I looked up, she sighed. You think fixing a fence is going to fix everything else? That's all she said. Then she went back inside and shut the door. I stayed out there until dark. Not because the job took that long. I just didn't want to see her face again that day. You ever get to a point where your own house doesn't feel like it's yours anymore? Where you walk in the door and feel like you have to ask permission to breathe? That's how it was. I'd come home and take my boots off slow, hoping I wouldn't hear that same tired sigh. After a while, even the little things disappeared. No more dinners together. No more asking how my day went. I started leaving cash on the counter instead of trying to hand it to her. She'd pick it up without a word, like it was just another bill she had to handle. I thought maybe I'd feel less ashamed if I beat her to the punch, if I acted like this was normal. Around that time, my mom called more often. She could tell something was wrong, but I kept lying. Said we were both just busy. She'd ask when we were going to visit. I'd say, soon, and know it was a lie. The idea of bringing her around my family, acting like everything was fine, it felt like too much. So I stopped answering her calls some days. Just let them ring until they went quiet. I didn't talk to Dave much anymore either. He still tried. Left voicemails asking if I was alive, if I wanted to come out for a beer, watch the game. I'd think about calling him back, about saying everything I couldn't say at home. But then I'd look at the clock, see how late it was, and tell myself tomorrow would be better. That's the thing about tomorrow. It's always just far enough away to feel like hope. I started keeping my work clothes in the truck. Some mornings, I wouldn't even come inside to change. I'd just sit there with the engine ticking as it cooled, staring at the porch light. It flickered sometimes. I never got around to fixing it. The worst part was how ordinary it all became. How the distance stopped feeling like something temporary. I don't know exactly when I stopped hoping. Maybe it was the night she came home late and didn't bother explaining. Or the morning I tried to kiss her cheek and she flinched, like my touch was something she'd rather not feel. But the truth is, by the time that party came around, I'd already started making plans in the back of my mind. Not big ones, just small thoughts, like what it would be like to pack a bag and not come back. Still, I wasn't ready yet. It's funny how much a man will put up with if he thinks there's a chance it might turn around. I kept showing up, kept paying the bills, kept pretending. Then the night of the party came. Her brother's birthday. She made a big deal about us going, said we needed to show face. I remember sitting in the truck outside their house, looking at my reflection in the window. I looked tired, older than I should have, like someone who'd forgotten what it felt like to be wanted. Inside, it was warm, crowded. The smell of cheap beer and casserole. People I hadn't seen in months. They all did that little polite nod, like they were surprised I still existed. She floated around the room, smiling at everyone but me. I stood by the kitchen doorway, a plastic cup in my hand I couldn't remember filling. At some point, I heard her laughing in the next room. Loud, carefree. A sound I hadn't heard in our house in a long time. I should have walked away. Should have gone outside for air. But I couldn't make my legs move. That's when she said it. At least with him the bills get paid. Just like that. Like I wasn't standing there. Like I was nothing but a walking paycheck. Everyone laughed. A couple of her cousins looked at me, then looked away. I felt something inside me go quiet. Not break. Just stop. I didn't say a word. Didn't make a scene. I just stood there, feeling every eye on me, waiting for me to react. But I didn't. I couldn't. I looked at her, really looked, and realized I didn't recognize the woman in front of me anymore. Whatever love we'd had was long gone. All that was left was habit and pity. When the laughter died down, she finally met my eyes. For a second, I thought she might apologize. But she didn't. She just turned away, like I wasn't worth the trouble. That was the moment I knew I was done. Not angry, not hurt, just done. I stayed through the rest of that party. Stood in the corner, watching her pretend we were still something worth pretending for. When it was over, I helped carry dishes to the sink, thanked her mother for dinner, and drove us home in silence. She fell asleep in the passenger seat. I looked over at her and felt nothing. No bitterness, no sorrow. Just an empty space where all my trying used to live. When we got home that night, I didn't wake her up. I let her sleep in the truck while I sat there with my hands on the wheel, staring at the dashboard. The engine ticked as it cooled, the same way it always did. That little sound used to mean I was home. Now it just felt like another place I didn't belong. Eventually, she stirred and mumbled something about being tired. She went inside without looking back. I watched her go, and that was when I knew I'd never feel the same about her again. It wasn't a dramatic moment. No shouting, no tears. Just a quiet finality settling into my bones. The next morning, I got up before dawn like always. Made coffee, pulled on my work boots. The kitchen felt colder than usual. Maybe because I knew, deep down, this was the last time I'd stand there pretending everything was fine. I left a note on the counter that just said, "Back late. Don't wait up." Even writing that felt like a lie. The truth was, I didn't know if I'd come back at all. At the shop, I couldn't focus. Every weld I laid down felt crooked. My hands weren't steady. Dave noticed. He came over and clapped a hand on my shoulder. "You look like hell," he said. I tried to shrug it off, but the words stuck in my head. I did look like hell. I felt worse. I thought about telling him everything. About the party, about the months of silence. But when I opened my mouth, nothing came out. What was I supposed to say? That my wife didn't love me anymore? That I'd known it for longer than I could admit? So I just nodded and went back to work. That week, I started thinking about what it would take to leave. Not just in a passing way, but seriously. I made a list in my head. What I'd need to pack, where I could stay, how much cash I'd have to set aside. It felt mechanical, like planning for a job. Easier that way. Every night, I'd sit in the truck before going inside, rehearsing how I'd say it. Sometimes I'd think about making it a fight, saying all the things I'd swallowed for too long. But when I pictured her face, I knew I didn't have it in me. I didn't want to hurt her. I just didn't want to keep being invisible. The day before I left, her friend Carla called me. I didn't even know she had my number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something made me pick up. Her voice was quiet. She said she was sorry for what happened at the party, that she hadn't realized how bad things were between us. I didn't answer right away. What was there to say? After a minute, she sighed. "You know," she said, "she's been saying things behind your back for a long time. About how you're too predictable, how you make her feel stuck." I closed my eyes, felt something in my chest go cold. Carla kept talking, soft and careful, like she was trying not to break me. "I'm not telling you to stay or to go. I just thought you deserved to know you weren't imagining it." I don't know how long I sat there after the call ended. Long enough that my coffee went cold. Long enough that the sun moved across the floor in a slow arc. I'd always wondered if maybe I was overreacting. If maybe I'd made it worse by expecting too much. Hearing Carla say those things out loud, it was like someone had finally turned the lights on in a dark room. And the truth was uglier than I'd let myself believe. That evening, I didn't go straight home. I drove around town with no plan. Past the old movie theater where we used to go on Saturdays. Past the diner where we'd sit in a booth and split a plate of fries. Every place felt like a ghost. A reminder of something we'd lost long before I noticed. When I finally pulled into the driveway, it was almost midnight. The porch light was off. I unlocked the door and stepped into the dark, listening to the hum of the fridge. She was asleep on the couch. The TV was still on, low volume, some old sitcom playing to no one. I stood there a long time, watching her breathe, trying to feel something, anger, sadness, anything. But there was nothing left. I went to the bedroom and pulled out an old duffel bag. Started folding my clothes, stacking them neat so they'd fit. My hands didn't shake. I moved slow, careful. Like if I rushed, it would turn into something dramatic, and I didn't want that. I wanted quiet. I wanted clean edges. I packed my work boots, a few shirts, the spare set of keys. Left the rest. It felt right. Like I was finally letting go of the weight I'd been carrying alone. When I finished, I sat on the edge of the bed. My phone buzzed. Dave again, probably wondering if I was okay. I didn't answer. Not yet. I needed to get out first. I walked back to the living room. She was still asleep, her face soft in the blue light of the TV. For a second, I almost woke her. Almost said goodbye. But what was the point? We'd said all we needed without words. On the way out, I set my wedding ring on the counter next to the cold coffee mug. It didn't feel like giving up. It felt like setting something down that didn't fit me anymore. Outside, the night was cold enough to bite through my jacket. I stood there, breathing in the dark, feeling lighter than I had in years. You ever have that moment? When you realize you're done trying. It doesn't hurt the way you expect. It just feels like the first real breath in a long time. I didn't look back at the house when I pulled away. Didn't check if she'd woken up. I just drove. Past the diner, past the movie theater, past every place that used to mean something. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was running away. I felt like I was going somewhere. I didn't have a plan after I left. Just the duffel bag in the back seat and enough cash to cover a couple weeks in a cheap motel. I thought maybe I'd feel lost, panicked. But it was the opposite. I felt clear. Like the noise in my head finally shut off. The motel was nothing to brag about. One of those places by the interstate, the kind that smelled like stale cigarettes no matter how long you left the window open. But the lock worked. The water ran hot. And nobody knew me there. That was enough. The first morning I woke up alone, I thought it would hurt more. I lay there listening to the trucks rumble past on the highway, wondering if she'd noticed I was gone. Wondering if she cared. Maybe that should have bothered me. Maybe it did, somewhere I couldn't reach anymore. But mostly I felt relief. Like I'd stepped out of something heavy and realized I didn't have to pick it back up. I called into work that day. Told the foreman I needed a couple days to sort things out. He didn't ask questions. Just grunted and said to call when I was ready. I sat on the edge of the bed with the phone in my hand for a long time after that, not sure who else I was supposed to tell. There wasn't anyone, really. My mom, maybe, but I didn't want to hear the pity in her voice. So I didn't call. That afternoon, Carla texted me. Just a simple message. You okay? I stared at the screen, trying to decide if I should answer. In the end, I did. I left. A minute later, the phone rang. I let it buzz twice before I picked up. Her voice was soft. I'm glad you did. You deserved better. I didn't know what to say to that. I'd spent so long thinking maybe I was the problem. That if I'd been different, warmer, more exciting, less tired, she wouldn't have drifted so far away. Hearing Carla say it like a fact, that I deserved better, it didn't feel like comfort. It felt like truth, and the truth stung more than any lie. I didn't cry. I hadn't cried through any of it. But my throat went tight. I rubbed my hand over my face and took a long breath. I don't know what comes next, I told her. You figure it out, she said. One day at a time. We didn't talk long. When I hung up, I felt lighter. Not happy. Not even hopeful. Just unburdened. Like someone had finally handed me permission to stop trying. The next few days were quiet. I'd get up early out of habit, drink motel coffee that tasted like wet cardboard, and sit by the window watching the parking lot fill and empty. I started to think about where I'd go. Maybe find a small place near the shop. Nothing fancy. Just somewhere that didn't carry the echoes of her voice. Sometimes at night, I'd think about that moment at the party. The way everyone laughed when she said it. The way nobody looked at me after. That memory still burned, but it didn't control me anymore. It was just proof of what I already knew. I'd been alone long before I packed my bag. A week after I left, Carla called again. Asked if I wanted to get coffee. I almost said no. I didn't want to start something new out of the ruins of something old. But she wasn't asking for that. Just coffee. Just two people who'd both seen the worst of someone else. So I said yes. We met at a diner off the highway. The kind of place with vinyl booths and cracked sugar dispensers. She was already there when I walked in, hands wrapped around a mug. When she looked up, she didn't smile right away. Just studied me, like she was trying to see if I was okay. I sat down across from her. We didn't say much at first. The waitress poured me coffee, and for a minute we just listened to the clatter of plates and the hum of conversation around us. Finally, Carla spoke. You look better. I let out a short laugh. That's a low bar. She nodded. Still, you look lighter. I didn't know how to explain it. That leaving didn't feel like giving up. That I didn't miss her the way I thought I would. I just shrugged and said, it was time. We talked for over an hour. Not about her. Not about the past. Just about little things. The weather. Work. Movies we hadn't seen. It felt easy in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. Like I didn't have to measure every word or brace for disappointment. When the check came, she reached for it. I stopped her. Let me. She looked like she might argue, then thought better of it. Just nodded. It wasn't a date. It wasn't anything but two people trying to feel normal again. And that was enough. After, we stood by our cars for a minute. The wind picked up, and she pulled her jacket tighter. You'll be okay, she said. I believed her. Driving back to the motel, I thought about all the nights I'd spent parked in my own driveway, too scared to go inside. About the way I convinced myself that staying was strength, that giving up was failure. But the truth was simpler. Sometimes leaving isn't quitting. It's surviving. That evening, I packed up my things for the last time, turned in my key at the front desk, drove to the small apartment I'd found near the shop. It wasn't much, a single room, a kitchenette that smelled like paint. But it was mine. No shared history, no ghosts. Just four walls and a door I could lock behind me. I set my duffel bag by the closet and sat down on the floor. It was quiet, but not the heavy kind of quiet I'd gotten used to. This was clean, empty in a way that felt like possibility. I stayed there a long time, listening to the pipes rattle when the neighbor turned on a faucet. I thought about the man I'd been, the one who believed working hard and paying the bills was enough to keep someone by your side. I thought about how wrong I'd been, but I didn't feel ashamed anymore. Just wiser. A little more worn down, maybe. But still here. You ever wonder how much a man can take before he breaks? I used to think I was unbreakable. Turns out I was just stubborn. There's a difference. Before I turned in for the night, I sent Carla a text. Thanks for the coffee. She replied a minute later. Anytime. I didn't read more into it than what it was, a simple kindness. And for now, that was all I wanted. I lay down on the bare mattress, no sheets yet, no comforter. Just me and the dark. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I owed anyone anything. Didn't feel like I had to prove I was worth loving. I closed my eyes and felt sleep come easy. That's all there is to it. No big ending. No moment of triumph. Just a man finally telling the truth to himself, if nobody else. And maybe that's enough.